Here are some intriguing facts about scripts and languages that have mystified scholars and linguists. 1. The Voynich manuscript. Written in an unknown script and an undeciphered language, the Voynich manuscript is one of the most mysterious books in history. Dating back to the early 15th century, it contains illustrations of plants, astronomical diagrams, and what appear to be recipes. Despite extensive study, no one has been able to definitively decode its meaning or identify the language it uses. 2. The Phaistos disc. Discovered in 1908 on the Greek island of Crete, the Phaistos disc is a circular clay tablet imprinted with symbols arranged in a spiral. The symbols represent a unique script that remains undeciphered to this day. The purpose and meaning of the disc are still a mystery, making it one of the most enigmatic artifacts from the ancient world. 3. Rongo Rongo. Rongo Rongo is a system of glyphs found on Easter Island, and it is one of the few examples of a writing system that has yet to be deciphered. The symbols were likely used by the Rapa Nui people, but the knowledge of how to read them was lost, possibly due to cultural disruption or colonization. Today, scholars are still trying to understand its structure and meaning. 4. The lost language of the Indus Valley Civilization. The Indus Valley Civilization, which flourished around 2500s BCE in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, developed a script that remains undeciphered. Despite numerous attempts to understand the inscriptions found on seals and pottery, the language and script have resisted all efforts at translation, leaving a significant gap in our understanding of this ancient civilization. 5. The Rosetta Stone. While not mysterious in the sense of being undeciphered, the Rosetta Stone is an iconic artifact that unlocked the mysteries of Egyptian hieroglyphs. Discovered in, it contains the same text in 3 different scripts: Greek, Demotic, and Egyptian hieroglyphs. The discovery and eventual deciphering of the Rosetta Stone in 1822 by Jean-François Champollion allowed historians to finally understand the ancient Egyptian language, revealing much about their culture and history. These examples illustrate how scripts and languages can both preserve and obscure knowledge across centuries, leaving behind puzzles that continue to challenge modern scholars. Asmodeus, also known as Ishma, Ashmedai, Asmodee, Asmodeus, Hasmodee, Sidene, is a powerful demon associated with lust, jealousy, anger, and revenge. He is the demon of lust, corresponding to the 3rd of the 7 deadly sins, and is also linked to the 32nd of the 72 spirits of Solomon. Asmodeus's primary objectives are to prevent intercourse between husband and wife, disrupt marriages, and tempt husbands into committing adultery. He is notorious for his involvement in cases of possession and is regarded as one of the most malevolent of Satan's infernal demons. Typically, Asmodeus is depicted with 3 heads, those of an ogre, a ram, and a bull, all representing sexually licentious creatures. He also has the feet of a cock, wings, and the tail of a serpent, rides on a dragon, and breathes fire. Origins and mythology. Asmodeus originates from ancient Persia, where his name is derived from Eshma, one of the 7 archangels or Amaraspans in Persian mythology. The Hebrews integrated him into their mythology, elevating his status to one of the most powerful demons. According to Hebrew legends, Asmodeus is the son of Naamah and Shamdon. Before his fall from heaven, he was part of the Seraphim, the highest order of angels. In other legends, he is associated with or married to Lilith, the demon queen of lust, and is sometimes considered the offspring of Lilith and Adam. The Book of Tobit recounts how Asmodeus lusted after a young woman named Sarah and killed each of her 7 husbands before their marriages could be consummated. When Sarah's 8th suitor, Tobias, entered her life, she prayed to God for help. God sent the archangel Raphael, who instructed Tobias on how to make incense from the heart and liver of a glanos fish to drive away Asmodeus. When Asmodeus appeared in the wedding chamber to kill Tobias, the incense forced him to flee to Egypt, where Raphael tracked him down and bound him. According to the pseudepigraphical Testament of Solomon, Asmodeus resides in the constellation of the Great Bear Ursa Major. He spreads wickedness, plots against newlyweds, drives women mad, ruins the beauty of virgins, and commits murders. However, He is perpetually thwarted by Raphael and the smoking liver and gall of certain fish, particularly the sheatfish of Assyrian rivers. Asmodeus also possesses knowledge of the future. Asmodeus and Solomon. Asmodeus is brought before King Solomon by the prince of demons, Beelzebub. Sullen, arrogant, and defiant, he tells Solomon that his reign over demons is temporary and that after Solomon's kingdom is divided, demons will once again walk among men, worshipped as gods. Asmodeus admits to a fear of water. Solomon binds him with iron chains and surrounds him with jars of water, forcing the demon to work by making clay vessels for the temple. Solomon also burns the liver and gall of a fish and a branch of storax beneath the demon to silence his insolence. Solomon uses his magical ring to compel Asmodeus and other demons to build his magnificent temple. After the temple's completion, Asmodeus challenges Solomon's perception of demonic power. When Solomon temporarily removes his chains and lends Asmodeus the ring, the demon hurls Solomon far from Jerusalem, seizes the ring, and assumes kingship. However, Solomon's lover, the Ammonite Naamah, finds the ring in the belly of a fish, enabling Solomon to regain his power. Solomon is then transported back to Jerusalem and punishes Asmodeus by imprisoning him in a jar. Christian lore and influence. Asmodeus was absorbed into Christian demonology, becoming one of the devil's primary agents of temptation. Witches were believed to worship him, and magicians sought to summon him for malevolent purposes. Grimoires of magical instruction sternly admonished that anyone seeking an audience with Asmodeus must summon him bareheaded. Out of respect, Johann Weyer stated that Asmodeus ruled gambling houses. According to the Lamechon, a major grimoire, Asmodeus is the first and chiefest under Ahriman and precedes all other demons. He grants the Ring of Virtues and teaches arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and all handicrafts. When properly summoned, he provides truthful answers to all questions, can make a person invisible, and reveals treasures guarded by a mammon. Asmodeus was one of the infernal agents blamed for the obscene sexual possession of the Louviers nuns in 17th century France. On August 1, 2024, the United States and Russia executed the largest prisoner exchange since the Cold War, involving the release of 26 individuals. This exchange, marked by months of behind-the-scenes negotiations, represents a significant development in U.S.-Russia relations, which have been strained in recent years due to various geopolitical tensions. The individuals involved in the exchange likely included a mix of high-profile figures, such as intelligence officers, military personnel, and possibly even individuals accused of espionage. The exchange might have been facilitated by intermediaries and carried out in a neutral location to ensure the smooth transfer of the prisoners. Such an event would have broader implications, potentially signaling a thaw in relations or at least a willingness to engage in dialogue despite ongoing conflicts. It could also reflect strategic decisions by both nations to prioritize certain diplomatic goals or respond to internal pressures. The prisoner exchange would likely be closely analyzed by international observers, with particular attention to the profiles of those released, the conditions of the exchange, and the potential impact on future diplomatic interactions between the two countries. CrowdStrike, a leading cybersecurity company, issued a software update that inadvertently caused a global outage of Microsoft services. This incident affected various sectors, including banking and airline industries, demonstrating the far-reaching impacts of such an event. The root cause was a defective update for Windows systems deployed by CrowdStrike. Once identified, CrowdStrike acted promptly to rectify the issue, releasing a fix to address the problem. However, as you mentioned, some Microsoft 365 functions may still be experiencing residual effects. This situation underscores the importance of rigorous testing and validation of software updates before they are deployed, especially for widely used systems. It also serves as a reminder that while cybersecurity measures are crucial for protecting systems and data, they can also introduce new risks if not properly managed. It's always important for businesses to have contingency plans in place for such incidents, including backup systems and disaster recovery strategies. This can help minimize disruption and ensure business continuity in the face of unexpected events. Angel, a being who mediates between God and mortals, overseeing all living things, the natural world, and the cosmos. Angels play a significant role in magic, tasked with battling demons, the devil, and other forces of evil. They are sent by God in response to prayer and need. The term angel comes from the Greek angelos, meaning messenger. One of their primary duties is to act as a messenger between humans and God, delivering God's will, whether to aid or to punish. Although angels have free will, they do not sin. Angels are specific to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, but they originate from the concept of helping and tutelary spirits found in various mythologies worldwide. Jewish mythology, influenced by Babylonian, Persian, Sumerian, Egyptian, and other mythologies, contributed to the development of the angelic figure, which later passed into Christian and Islamic traditions. The Bible describes angels as representatives of God existing in a celestial realm and innumerable in number. They are incorporeal but can take on physical form and pass as mortals, appearing as beings of fire, lightning, or brilliant light, sometimes with wings. Various classes of angels are mentioned in the Bible, and by the 6th century, these were organized into hierarchies. Christian church fathers extensively studied the duties, nature, numbers, abilities, and functions of angels, with theological interest peaking in the Middle Ages and declining during the Renaissance. In magic, angels are prominent, presiding over every aspect of creation. They are featured in Kabbalah-based magic, which forms a significant part of the Western magical tradition. Angels, along with demons, are involved in rituals detailed in magical books and grimoires. According to the Book of Revelation, the greatest confrontation between angels and demons will occur in Armageddon. Armies of angels, led by the Archangel Michael, will battle and defeat the forces of Satan. In Islam, angels are spiritual beings created by Allah from light. They are considered obedient servants of God, carrying out His commands without free will or sin. Angels play a crucial role in Islamic theology and are involved in various aspects of the spiritual and physical world. Angels in Islam are characterized by their creation from light, unlike humans who are made from clay and jinn from smokeless fire. They are free from sin and do not possess free will, meaning they are incapable of disobeying Allah. These beings perform a variety of tasks assigned by Allah, including acting as messengers, record keepers, guardians, protectors, and executing God's commands. For example, Kiraman Katibin are the angels assigned to record each person's good and bad deeds, and Munkar and Nakir are responsible for questioning the dead in their. Among the notable angels in Islam are Jibril, also known as Gabriel, who delivered Allah's revelations to the prophets, including the Quran to Muhammad. Mikael, also known as Michael, is responsible for providing nourishment to human bodies and souls and managing natural phenomena like rain. Israfil is the angel who will blow the trumpet to mark the day of judgment, and Azrael, the angel of death, is responsible for taking the souls of the deceased. In Islamic eschatology, angels will play a significant role during the day of judgment, assisting in the resurrection of the dead and the sorting of souls based on their deeds. Angels are also the guardians of paradise and hell, managing the affairs of these realms as decreed by Allah. They ensure that divine justice is carried out and that the faithful are rewarded while the wrongdoers are punished. In Christianity, angels are celestial beings created by God to serve as His messengers and servants. They play significant roles in both the spiritual and physical realms, acting as intermediaries between God and humans, protectors, and executors of God's will. The concept of angels in Christianity is deeply rooted in the Bible, where they are depicted as powerful, pure, and obedient beings. Angels are frequently mentioned in both the Old and New Testaments. In the Old Testament, they appear in various forms, sometimes as human-like figures and other times as beings of immense power and light. For example, angels visited Abraham to deliver messages from God and were involved in the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. In the New Testament, angels play crucial roles in significant events such as the Annunciation, where the angel Gabriel informs Mary of her impending birth of Jesus.
Lake Toba is in the middle of northern Sumatra. It lies about 200 miles from the epicenter of the magnitude 9.3 earthquake that devastated Asia in late December 2004, as its tsunami swept across the Indian Ocean. This lake is known as a caldera, the technical term for the crater formed by a volcanic eruption. It is a big lake, 18 by 60 miles in extent and as deep as 5,000 feet in places. The size of the lake can be attributed to Toba's eruption, which was the largest that has occurred anywhere on Earth within the past 2 million years. About 74,000 years ago, a high volcanic mountain that stood on the area now occupied by Lake Toba erupted and blew skyward a mass of ash and volcanic debris that was 3,000 times as big as the total amount that erupted from Mount St. Helens in 1980. The entire subcontinent of India was covered with ash. All around the globe, sunshine was reduced and temperatures dropped by about 3 degrees, and stayed at that level for years. During that time, throughout the world, millions of all forms of life died, thousands of species vanished.
Achilles is one of the most important warriors in Greek mythology. He possessed strength, bravery, military skills, pride, and honor, all qualities that the ancient Greeks valued as manly virtues. However, his behavior was also influenced by anger, stubbornness, and a desire for revenge. The tension between Achilles' exceptional virtues and his human weaknesses plays a crucial role in the heroic tragedy of the Iliad. Like many mythological heroes, Achilles was part human and part divine. His parents were Peleus, a king of Thessaly in northern Greece, and Thetis, a sea nymph. According to Homer, Thetis raised both Achilles and his closest friend and companion Patroclus. According to legend, Achilles' mother Thetis tried to make her infant son invulnerable by dipping him into the river Styx, which flowed through the underworld. As a result, no killed many Trojans and struck fear into their hearts. The Trojans were helpless against his mighty strength and invulnerability to weapons. However, Achilles was an extremely proud warrior. When he felt insulted by the leader of the Greek forces, Agamemnon, he refused to fight for the Greeks. He only returned to the battle when his friend Patroclus died at the hands of the great Trojan warrior Hector. Achilles rushed into battle with a furious desire to avenge the death of Patroclus. He chased Hector around the walls of Troy 3 times before killing the Trojan prince in one-on-one combat. He then dragged Hector's body behind his chariot for 9 days, preventing the Trojans from holding a proper funeral. The gods eventually forced Achilles to surrender Hector's body to his grieving father, King Priam of Troy. Shortly afterward, Achilles was killed on the battlefield when an arrow fired by Hector's brother Paris struck him in his vulnerable heel. The Greeks entered Troy through a cunning strategy involving the Trojan horse. After a decade of unsuccessful siege warfare, the Greeks devised a plan to infiltrate the city. They constructed a large wooden horse, hollowed out to conceal a select group of Greek soldiers inside. The rest of the Greek army pretended to abandon the siege, sailing away but hiding nearby. The Trojans, believing the Greeks had given up and left the horse as a peace offering to the gods, brought the horse into the city as a trophy. That night, while the Trojans celebrated their apparent victory, the Greek soldiers hidden inside the horse emerged and opened the city gates. The rest of the Greek army, which had secretly returned under the cover of night, entered Troy. The Greeks then launched a surprise attack, catching the Trojans off guard and ultimately conquering the city. This stratagem led to the downfall of Troy and is famously known as the Trojan Horse. The Trojan War, in which Achilles fought, was the struggle between the Greeks and the Trojans over Helen, who symbolized Greek pride as the most beautiful woman in the world. Modern-day scholars are uncertain about how much of the Trojan War story is fiction, but it reflects the reality of ancient Greek conflicts for control of land and resources. The warrior culture of that era arose from the need to protect farmland and livestock. Warriors also conquered more land when poor farming conditions or conflicts made relocation necessary. Young men were trained in warrior skills and the code of honor and glory. Under the command of Alexander the Great, the Greeks succeeded on the battlefield and expanded their empire across much of what is now the Middle East and Western Asia. In the oral culture of ancient Greece, tales of battles and heroism were passed down through generations, emphasizing the importance of heroic deeds and glory. However, the glory Achilles achieves does not make him a perfect example of a Greek man. His pride causes him to prioritize himself over the army, leading to heavy Greek losses and the death of his best friend, Patroclus. This flaw in Achilles' character highlights the ancient Greek value of the group over the individual. In ancient Greek society, life was so difficult that people relied heavily on social relationships for survival. One person acting selfishly could jeopardize the well-being of the entire community. On June 7, 1494, Spain and Portugal signed the Treaty of Tordesillas, an agreement that aimed to resolve conflicts over newly discovered lands and would significantly shape the course of global colonization. This landmark treaty, brokered by the Catholic Church, established a demarcation line to divide the non-European world between the two powers. However, the treaty completely disregarded the rights and interests of the indigenous populations living in these regions. The subsequent colonization led to significant cultural, social, and demographic changes, often resulting in the exploitation and displacement of native peoples. The introduction of European diseases such as smallpox and measles also had devastating effects on indigenous populations. The Treaty of Tordesillas marked a significant turning point in the age of exploration. It set a precedent for future international agreements on territorial claims and showcased the early stages of international diplomacy. The treaty helped reduce conflict between Spain and Portugal, allowing both nations to focus on expanding their empires and exploiting the resources of their newly acquired territories. Moreover, the treaty influenced subsequent agreements, such as the Treaty of Zaragoza in 1529, which further clarified Spanish and Portuguese claims in Asia. These agreements shaped the course of exploration, colonization, and global interactions for centuries to come. The Treaty of Tordesillas had profound and lasting impacts on global geopolitics. It laid the groundwork for the development of vast colonial empires by European powers and influenced the spread of languages, religions, and cultures worldwide. The treaty's legacy can still be seen in the modern political map, particularly in the Americas and Africa. The Treaty of Tordesillas was a pivotal event in world history, shaping the course of exploration, colonization, and global interactions for centuries to come. It serves as a reminder of the complex and often contentious process of international diplomacy and the profound impact of such agreements on the world's political, economic, and cultural landscapes. Despite its historical significance, it is essential to acknowledge the treaty's devastating consequences for indigenous populations and the long-lasting effects of colonialism. The concept of Jewish black magic is a complex and often misunderstood topic that requires a nuanced and sensitive approach. In this video, we will explore the historical and cultural context of Jewish beliefs and practices related to magic and the supernatural, and examine the role of Kabbalah and other mystical traditions in shaping these beliefs. First, it's important to understand that Judaism has a long and rich history of mystical and esoteric traditions, dating back to the time of the Talmud and beyond. These traditions include the study of Kabbalah, which is a form of Jewish mysticism that seeks to understand the nature of God and the universe through the use of meditation, visualization, and other spiritual practices. While Kabbalah is often associated with magic and the supernatural, it is important to note that the primary goal of Kabbalistic practice is to achieve a deeper understanding of God and the divine presence in the world. However, some Kabbalistic texts and traditions do include practices that could be interpreted as forms of magic or divination, such as the use of divine names and angels to achieve certain outcomes. It's also worth noting that the Jewish attitude towards magic and the supernatural has evolved over time and has been influenced by a variety of cultural and historical factors. In ancient times, the use of magic and divination was widespread throughout the Middle East, and many Jewish texts from this period reflect this cultural context. However, as Judaism developed and evolved, there was a growing emphasis on the importance of monotheism and the rejection of idolatry, which included the prohibition of magic and divination. Despite this prohibition, there are still a number of Jewish texts and legends that describe the use of magic and the supernatural for both good and evil purposes. For example, the Talmud contains stories of rabbis using magic to heal the sick or to protect themselves from harm, while other texts describe the use of magic for more sinister purposes, such as to curse one's enemies or to gain power over others. One of the most well-known examples of Jewish black magic is the legend of the golem, a mythical creature made of clay or mud that is brought to life through the use of Kabbalistic magic. According to the legend, a golem can be created by a righteous person who has mastered the secrets of Kabbalah and can be used to protect the Jewish community from harm. However, the golem is also said to be difficult to control and can become a destructive force if not properly managed. It's important to note that the concept of the golem is largely a product of folklore and legend, and is not a central part of Jewish theology or practice. However, the legend of the golem reflects a deeper cultural anxiety about the dangers of unchecked power and the potential consequences of using magic for selfish or evil purposes. Another example of Jewish black magic is the use of dibbuks, which are malevolent spirits that are believed to possess the bodies of living people. According to Jewish folklore, a dibbuk can be the soul of a deceased person who has unfinished business in the world, or it can be a demonic entity that seeks to cause harm. The exorcism of dibbuks is a complex and dangerous process that requires the assistance of a skilled Kabbalist or rabbi. Despite these examples, it's important to reiterate that the use of magic and the supernatural for evil purposes is strictly forbidden in Judaism. The Jewish tradition places a strong emphasis on ethical behavior and the pursuit of justice, and any form of magic that is used to harm others is seen as a violation of these core values. In conclusion, the concept of Jewish black magic is a complex and multifaceted topic that reflects the rich history and diversity of Jewish beliefs and practices related to the supernatural. While Judaism strongly discourages the use of magic for evil purposes, there are still a number of texts and legends that describe the use of magic and the supernatural for both good and evil ends. Ultimately, the Jewish approach to magic and the supernatural is grounded in a deep reverence for the divine and a commitment to ethical behavior and the pursuit of justice. The Australian Plate is a significant tectonic player in the Southern Pacific region, interacting dynamically with neighboring plates and influencing geological activity in several countries. Geographical scope and interactions. The Australian Plate includes the continent of Australia and extends to the east and north where it meets the Pacific and Eurasian plates. Its southeastern margin encompasses New Zealand, which straddles the boundary between the Pacific Plate and the Australian Plate. The interaction between these plates shapes the region's geological features and activity. New Zealand's tectonic features. New Zealand is a prime example of the Australian Plate's impact. The South Island is bisected by the Alpine Fault, a transform fault marking the boundary between the plates. The North Island, meanwhile, experiences volcanic activity due to the subduction of the Pacific Plate beneath the Australian Plate. This subduction is responsible for the island's numerous volcanoes and frequent seismic activity. Tonga Arc and volcanic activity. To the north of New Zealand, the Tonga Arc is another significant feature formed by the subduction of the Pacific Plate beneath the Australian Plate. This region is known for its intense volcanic activity, with nearly 50 volcanoes, many of which have erupted in recent history. One of the most intriguing eruptions occurred at Home Reef in 2006, producing a large pumice raft that captured global attention. Subduction zones in the Pacific. Further north, the subduction zone continues through Vanuatu and the Solomon Islands, where the Australian Plate is subducting beneath the Pacific Plate. This zone then turns westward, extending to Papua New Guinea and causing frequent seismic and volcanic activity. In this region, the tectonic situation becomes more complex with the involvement of 6 microplates, creating a network of subduction zones and transform boundaries. Indonesian archipelago. West of Papua New Guinea, the Australian Plate subducts beneath the Eurasian Plate throughout the Indonesian archipelago. This subduction has formed the Indonesian islands and is responsible for the region's intense volcanic and earthquake activity, making Indonesia one of the most seismically active areas in the world. Impact of earthquakes and tsunamis. The edges of the Australian Plate are prone to significant earthquakes, although fatalities are relatively rare. The deadliest earthquake recorded in the region occurred in 1931 at Hawke's Bay, New Zealand, resulting in 256 deaths. Tsunamis, however, pose a greater threat to life and property, with both locally generated and distant tsunamis causing major destruction across Oceania. In summary, the Australian Plate's interactions with neighboring plates create a dynamic and geologically active region, influencing volcanic and seismic activity from New Zealand to Indonesia. Understanding these interactions is crucial for assessing the risks and preparing for natural disasters in these areas. Gabriele Amorth was born on May 1, 1925 in Modena, Emilia-Romagna, Italy. He was a writer, known for movies, The Pope's Exorcist, 2023. Satan Lives, 2015. Jak Pokonak Satana, 2013. Now, you got it, right. He was an exorcist of Vatican City in the Archdiocese of Rome. Dedicated to the abolition of satanic evil, Father Gabriele Amorth has personally handled more than 160,000 exorcisms around the world. Amorth believes that many modern-day pastimes and games, such as conjuring, playing with magic but not illusion, conversing with a Ouija, listening to rock music, and having contact with satanic ritual and content, open the door for demonic possession. He says there are too few priests who believe in casting out devils, although Jesus bequeaths that ability to the apostles in his name. Holy Bible, chapter Mark 3 and 10. 8. Much less have any training in the rites of exorcism. He received the faculty of exorcist by Cardinal Ugo Poletti, the Pope's vicar for the Diocese of Rome, in 1986, studying under Father Candido Amantini, a Passionist priest, who served as chief exorcist for 36 years. When Father Amantini passed away on his saint's day, September 22, 1992, at age 78, Father Amorth succeeded him. One reporter described Amorth as more like the genial Uncle Fester on The Addams Family than the stern priest depicted by Max von Sydow in the film The Exorcist, Amorth's favorite movie. Amorth's eyes are intense and piercing, encircled by dark rings. Their unwavering gaze appears more than capable of staring down demons. He dresses in black. Amorth works tirelessly at his calling, keeping a full calendar of appointments, reading, lecturing, writing, and, most important, ridding sufferers of the evils he sees all around him. He has warned against the popularity of the author J.K. Rowling's popular Harry Potter novels, claiming in an interview for a Catholic news source that behind the boy wizard lies the signature of the King of Darkness. He tried unsuccessfully to have the Potter books banned from Italy, claiming that they teach sorcery to children. Demonic possession can happen in one of four ways, according to Amorth: through a curse by another, by continuing a life of sin, by practicing occultism, and as a test of the victim's faith. Most usually the trials endured by the saints that prove their holiness. The possessed person invites Satan into his or her life by choosing the paths of sin and occultism. The other two ways are foisted upon the unwary. When a victim of the devil petitions Amorth for spiritual cleansing, the priest does not wait for proof of demonic presence, as many of his fellow exorcists do, but immediately begins prayers of deliverance and liberation, a small exorcism, even over the telephone or by email. He sees his first efforts as a research tool in themselves, for if the prayers have any impact at all on the victim, then inhuman entities are at work. Early in his career, he despaired of how few exorcists were available, but Amorth is encouraged that the number of practicing exorcists in Italy alone has grown 10%-fold to more than 300. He is involved in the training of those exorcists, especially regarding the changes in the Rituala Romanum, the liturgy of prayers and exhortations in the name of Jesus Christ, used to exorcise demons and devils. During the Second Vatican Council under Pope John XXIII, the ritual was scheduled for revision, yet many years passed before Father Amorth and his colleagues saw any of the changes. Others worked on the new ritual, as it is called, ignoring the input of those who depended on it. In 2000s, Father Amorth outlined his objections to the revised rite. He was especially scornful of strictures on using the new ritual against evil spells and curses, in reality, forbidding its use in such circumstances, and the commands that exorcism not be used unless demonic activity can be absolutely certified. As noted, Father Amorth uses small exorcisms to prove the presence of inhuman spirits and believes this approach to be valuable in terms of diagnosing whether genuine possession has occurred. Most people who think they are demonically possessed are not, he says, and need medical treatment, not exorcism. Amorth and his colleagues submitted carefully worded amendments to the new ritual, to no avail. According to Father Amorth, the church hierarchy regards the exorcists as fanatic demonologues, and it even exhibits hostility toward them and their work. Most insulting to Father Amorth was the refusal by church officials to allow 150 members of the International Association of Exorcists, an organization founded by Amorth and representing exorcist priests internationally, to join in a public audience with Pope John Paul II in St. Peter's Square. The interview, Amorth revealed that entire episcopates refused to acknowledge the need for exorcists, including the countries of Spain, Portugal, Switzerland, and Germany. German bishops went so far as to inform Cardinal Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict XVI, that revisions of the Roman Rite were unnecessary since they would never use it anyway. Father Amorth asserted that the Church's refusal to acknowledge demonic activity could mean that the evil one has infiltrated even the innermost circles of the Vatican. He remained steadfast in his faith, noting that while Satan may win battles, the Holy Spirit will win the war. In October 2000s, it was reported he had performed over 50,000 exorcisms, which ranged from a few minutes to several hours in length. In March 2010, he said the number had increased to 70,000. By May 2013, he said he had performed 160,000 exorcisms in the course of his ministry. According to Amorth, each exorcism does not represent a victim of possession, but rather each exorcism is counted as a prayer or ritual alone. Some possessed victims required hundreds of exorcisms. Edward Peters, a professor of canon law, finds Amorth's claim to have personally performed 30,000 exorcisms over 9 years astounding. Even accepting Amorth's claim that only 94% of his 30,000 exorcisms represented full-blown possession. That would have required roughly one case a month to be thoroughly examined and processed over 9 years with hardly a break. To account for the high number, Amorth purported that a person might be possessed by more than one demon at once, sometimes numbering in the thousands. He also attributed the number of exorcisms performed to his opinion that people have lost the faith, and superstition, magic, Satanism, or Ouija boards have taken its place, which then open all the doors to the presence of demons. When asked whether the devil can strike inside the Vatican City, Amorth stated, "He has tried already." He did it in 1981 by attacking John Paul II by working with those who armed Ali Akka. Amorth offered the following guidelines to those exercising the charism of exorcism. Any such person must be highly regarded for their prayer life, faith, acts of charity, and judgment. In addition, he must rely solely on the Word of God and traditional prayer, be completely detached from monetary concerns, be profoundly humble, and treasure obscurity. The Vatican last codified the rites of exorcism in 2004 in an updated Latin language document, De Exorcismis et Supplicationibus Quibus Dam. Father Amorth has written 4 books. An Exorcist Tells His Story, 1999, Gospel of Mary, A Month with the Mother of God, 2000s, An Exorcist, More Stories, 2002, and Pater Pio, Lebensgeschichte eines Heiligen, a German biography of Padre Pio, published in 2003. He died on September 16, 2016 in Rome, Lazio, Italy.
One of the most mysterious real stories about elections is the case of the disappeared votes in the 2000 United States presidential election. This election, which took place between George W. Bush and Al Gore, was marked by a highly contentious and controversial vote count, particularly in the state of Florida. The election night ended with no clear winner, leading to a mandatory recount in Florida. What followed was a legal and political drama that lasted over a month. There were widespread reports of voting irregularities, including confusing ballot designs, malfunctioning voting machines, and allegations of voter suppression. The most famous issue was the butterfly ballot used in Palm Beach County, which was so confusing that many voters ended up voting for a third-party candidate, Pat Buchanan, instead of Al Gore. This ballot design error potentially cost Gore thousands of votes in a state where the final margin was just 537 votes. Additionally, there were disputes over hanging chads, that means partially punched holes in paper ballots, and dimpled chads. It means indentations on a ballot that were not punched through. The controversy over how to count these ballots led to multiple lawsuits and a contentious series of court battles. The Florida Supreme Court ordered a statewide manual recount, but this decision was halted by the U.S. Supreme Court in the landmark case Bush v. Gore. The court's decision effectively awarded Florida's electoral votes, and thus the presidency, to George W. Bush. The 2000 election exposed significant flaws in the American electoral system and led to widespread calls for reform. The mysterious and chaotic nature of the vote count, along with the legal battles and the narrow margin, have made this election one of the most controversial and closely scrutinized in U.S. history.
Antichrist, the ultimate adversary of Christ. The Antichrist is linked with the second coming and the apocalypse. Initially depicted as a man, in contemporary interpretations, the Antichrist is often portrayed as a being who is part human and part demon, the offspring of Satan, brought into existence by a woman. The only direct references to the Antichrist in the Bible are found in the letters of John. The term itself is ambiguous, potentially meaning opponent of Christ, false Christ, against Christ, or in place of Christ. These references suggest that the Antichrist is an established tradition, indicating that this adversary will appear before the second coming in an attempt to take over the world. In the Holy Bible, 1 John 2:18-22 states, "Who is the liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ?" This is the Antichrist, he who denies the Father and the Son. In 4:3, the author mentions, "Every spirit which does not confess Jesus is not of God." This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming, and now is in the world already. Additionally, 2 John 7 notes, "For many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not acknowledge the coming of Jesus Christ in the flesh. Such a one is the deceiver and the Antichrist." Here, the Antichrist appears more as a spirit or an attitude that influences many people, specifically the disbelievers and thus heretics, rather than being a single individual. Other passages in the New Testament refer to opponents of Christ without explicitly using the term Antichrist. The Gospels of Mark and Matthew mention false prophets, and Paul's 2 Thessalonians 2:3-12 describes the lawless one, or the man of lawlessness, who will appear before the second coming.
Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself against every so-called God or object of worship, so that he takes his seat in the temple of God, proclaiming himself to be God. Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you this? And you know what is restraining him now, so that he may be revealed in his time. For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work. Only he who now restrains it will do so until he is out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, and the Lord Jesus will slay him with the breath of his mouth and destroy him by his appearing and his coming. The coming of the lawless one by the activity of Satan will be with all power and with pretended signs and wonders and with all wicked deception for those who are to perish, because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore God sends upon them a strong delusion to make them believe what is false, so that all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness.
Revelation mentions other adversaries, primarily the beasts of the land and the sea, and the dragon or serpent, which represents the devil himself. The notion of the Antichrist was more elaborately developed in the 2nd century CE, notably by the church father Irenaeus, who argued that the best defense against the devil is Christ. Christian prayers and the invocation of Christ's name cause demons to flee. However, the Antichrist, a human, will emerge as an apostate, murderer, and thief. Irenaeus claimed he would possess all the devil's power and attract followers and worshippers. Ultimately, the Antichrist will be defeated, and Satan and his demons will be consigned to eternal torment in hell. Origen, another early church father, referred to the Antichrist as the son of the evil demon, who is Satan and the devil. He predicted that in his final confrontation with Christ, the Antichrist would be supported by Satan and his demons, who were imprisoned at the time of the Passion. Augustine, one of the most influential early fathers, considered the Antichrist to be a single individual rather than groups of evil men. Following the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, Protestants often labeled the Pope as the Antichrist, while Catholics claimed that Martin Luther would father the Antichrist. In 1848, the Blessed Virgin Mary, appearing in apparitional visions at La Salette, France, predicted that the seat of Rome would serve the Antichrist. How I warned and warned that Satan would enter into the highest realms of the hierarchy in Rome. The third secret, my child, is that Satan would enter into my son's church. In 1928, Lucifer was a principal demon involved in possessing a woman in Erling, Iowa. Father Theophilus, the exorcist, became convinced that the time of the Antichrist was near. However, he believed that the Antichrist would not be the son of the devil, but Lucifer himself, who would create a body out of earthly matter to act in the world. The view of the Antichrist as the son of the devil is the most popular modern interpretation, depicted in fiction and films such as Rosemary's Baby, The Omen, and The Devil's Advocate. Subscribe now to the channel for more mysterious stories and facts.
The astronomers, based in Purple Mountain and National Astronomical Observatories, analyzed different sources of data on the Milky Way. They used new space technology to look at the distance between individual stars. Overall, they measured the distance between 200 stars and put a map together of the Milky Way. They also used data from the European Space Agency's Gaia Space Telescope for their map. This telescope is special since it precisely observes the movement of stars. The Milky Way galaxy, which is home to our solar system, has long been thought to have a flat disk shape. However, recent research from astronomers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences suggests that the Milky Way is actually a different shape. The team of astronomers used a combination of data from different sources to better understand the galaxy's shape and came to some surprising conclusions. One of the key techniques used by the researchers was measuring Cepheid variable stars. These are a type of star that are helpful for astronomers to use in research because their distance apart is easy to measure. While most stars have a variable brightness, making it hard to tell how far away they are, Cepheid stars are different. They change their brightness at regular intervals. Cepheids get brighter and dimmer over days, weeks, and months. Astronomers can track this brightness cycle to measure how far away the star is. By doing this, the scientists were able to create a three-dimensional map of over 1,000 Cepheid stars in the Milky Way. Another major finding was that the Milky Way isn't a flat disk. While the Milky Way is often depicted as a flat disk of stars, the map shows that the galaxy is actually twisted in an S shape. The Milky Way isn't the only galaxy like this. More than half of spiral galaxies have some sort of twist. The new findings show that the Milky Way is pretty normal in terms of galaxy shapes, but humans have been imagining the shape wrong for a long time. The research findings show that the Milky Way probably doesn't have 4 arms, as was previously thought. Instead, the astronomers found 2 main arms connected to the central bulge of the galaxy. This would mean the Milky Way is a barred spiral galaxy with 2 main arms instead of 4. On the edge of the Milky Way galaxy, there are irregular arms disconnected from the central bulge of the galaxy. One possibility as to why the spiral arms aren't connected to the central bulge is that our galaxy may have collided with other galaxies throughout history. The fact that the Milky Way is twisted has important implications for our understanding of the galaxy's history and evolution. It suggests that the galaxy has undergone some sort of disturbance, such as a collision with another galaxy, which caused it to become twisted. The researchers believe that the twist in the Milky Way's shape may have been caused by the galaxy's interaction with the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, which is a small galaxy that orbits the Milky Way. The research conducted by the astronomers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences has shed new light on the shape of the Milky Way galaxy and its history. The team's use of new space technology and data from the Gaia Space Telescope has allowed them to create a more accurate map of the galaxy and better understand its structure. The findings have important implications for our understanding of the galaxy's history, evolution, and the distribution of dark matter. As we continue to explore the universe, it's likely that we'll continue to uncover new and exciting information about the Milky Way and its place in the cosmos. The new findings also have implications for our understanding of the distribution of dark matter in the Milky Way. Dark matter is a mysterious substance that doesn't emit or absorb light, but its presence can be inferred from its gravitational effects on visible matter. The researchers found that the distribution of dark matter in the Milky Way is closely linked to the distribution of visible matter, which suggests that the two are connected in some way.
An amulet is an object believed to possess protective powers, used to ward off demons, evil, disease, bad luck, misfortune, witches, sorcerers, and other harmful entities, especially of a supernatural nature. They have been employed universally since ancient times to protect people, places, and animals against demonic influence and attack. Common materials for amulets include natural stones, crystals, metals like iron and silver, as well as objects imbued with protective power through prayer, magic, or written inscriptions such as charms and prayers. Additionally, sounds like bells, gongs, chants, and songs, as well as fumes, can also serve as effective amulets. Universal amulets have been widely used across cultures to protect against various evils. Bells, for example, are employed to repel demons, evil spirits, and the evil eye. They hold divine associations and have been integral to magical and religious rites since ancient times. Bell ringing, described in Assyrian magical texts dating back to the 1st millennium BCE, is believed to drive away evil spirits. Nicholas Remy noted that demons are repelled by the sound of bells, often associating bell ringers with lightning strikes, considered under demonic control. Bells are attached to clothing, tied to children and animals, and hung in doorways, with red ties, ribbons, or sashes enhancing their protective power. In folklore, bells are rung during storms, thought to be caused by witches and demons. On nights associated with witchcraft, such as Samhain and Beltane, church bells are rung to prevent witches and their demon familiars from flying over villages. Accused witches in trials testified about being transported through the air to a sabbat on the back of a demon or the devil, only to be thrown off when church bells sounded. Traditionally, church bells are rung when a person dies to protect their journey from demonic attack as they pass into the afterlife. Additionally, fumes from burned incense, herbs, and sacrificed animals are believed to be pleasing to the gods and repellent to demons. The Book of Tobit recounts how the archangel Raphael taught Tobias to produce fumes from the burned liver of a fish to exorcise the demon Asmodeus. Salt is believed to repel demons and evil entities due to its purity, whiteness, preservative properties, and association with life and health. Its nature is contrary to that of demons, who seek to corrupt and destroy. Consequently, salt is often avoided in magical rituals involving the conjuring of demons. Salt has been believed to repel witches and the evil eye for centuries. In medieval Europe, a test for bewitchment involved observing whether a person or animal could consume salted food. During the European witch hunts, inquisitors protected themselves by wearing a sacramental amulet made of salt consecrated on Palm Sunday and blessed herbs, encased in blessed wax. Accused witches were sometimes tortured by being force-fed heavily salted food while being denied water. Salt has long been considered a potent remedy against evil spells. An ancient method for breaking such spells involves stealing a tile from a witch's roof, sprinkling it with salt and urine, and heating it over a fire while reciting a charm. In American Ozark folklore, women who complain about food being too salty are sometimes suspected of being witches. Another method of detecting a witch involves sprinkling salt on her chair. If she is indeed a witch, the salt will melt and cause her dress to stick to the chair. Superstition dictates that spilling, borrowing, or running out of salt brings bad luck, likely stemming from its historical value and scarcity. Spilling salt is believed to make one vulnerable to the devil, but this bad luck can be counteracted by tossing a pinch of salt with the right hand over the left shoulder. In Christianity, blessed salt is mixed with blessed water to make holy water. In folklore, running water symbolizes purity and has the power to repel evil. Crossing running water was believed to help individuals evade evil spirits and witches. During the European witch hunts, suspected witches were often subjected to swimming tests where they were dunked into deep water with their hands and feet bound. If they floated, it was interpreted as the water rejecting them due to their evil nature, indicating guilt of witchcraft. Conversely, sinking and usually drowning were considered as the water accepting them, suggesting innocence. Crooked paths and bridges have long been believed to confuse spirits, including evil ones, thereby preventing their access to a place. The mezuzah is one of the most significant Jewish religious objects with amuletic properties against evil. It consists of biblical inscriptions attached to doorposts, typically containing verses from Deuteronomy 6:4-19 and 11:13-20. These verses emphasize the commandments from the one and only God, serving as a reminder of monotheism and the importance of obedience. The mezuzah likely originated as a primitive charm, but by the Middle Ages, it had gained significant power as a protector against demons. Rabbinic leaders sought to imbue it with more religious significance, citing Deuteronomy 6:9, "And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates." However, in popular usage, its primary function remained as a talisman to ward off evil. The mezuzah's reputation for repelling demons was so potent that both Gentiles and Jews adopted its use. It was also thought to ward off premature death. Many households installed mezuzah in every room. Individuals often carried small mezuzah as personal protective charms. Strict procedures were observed for crafting a mezuzah. It was traditionally written on deer parchment according to specific guidelines outlined in an amulet table found in the angelic Sefer Raziel, and it was created under particular astrological and angelic influences. According to one set of 10th century instructions, it was to be written only on Mondays during the 5th hour, governed by the sun and the angel Raphael, or on Thursdays during the 4th hour, governed by Venus and the angel Anel. Mezuzah were encased in protective cases, with strict guidelines against altering the face of the parchment but allowing writing on the back. A popular medieval addition was the name Shaddai, believed to be particularly potent in repelling demons, often revealed through small windows cut in the back of the mezuzah cases. Other additions included names of God, additional Bible verses, names of angels, and magical symbols. Frequently mentioned angels included Michael, Gabriel, Azrael, Zadkiel, Saphiel, Raphael, Anael, Uriel, Yophiel, and Hasdiel. Today, mezuzah are still used both as religious objects and amulets, protecting homes and worn on the person for spiritual defense. Tefillin, also known as phylacteries, are another significant anti-demonic amulet. They consist of a pair of black leather boxes containing parchment inscribed with biblical verses. One box is worn wrapped around the arm, hand, and fingers, the hand tefillin, while the other is strapped above the forehead, the head tefillin. Tefillin serve as a symbol and reminder that God led the children of Israel out of Egypt and are worn during weekday morning prayer services. The tzitzit, consisting of fringes attached to outer garments, persists in modern times as the fringe on prayer shawls. Alongside tefillin, the tzitzit serves as an amulet against accidents, illness, and death. According to the Talmud, the threefold cord of mezuzah, tefillin, and tzitzit forms a potent combination against evil. Whoever has the tefillin on his head, the mezuzah on his door, and tzitzit on his mantle may feel sure that he cannot sin. Moon-shaped amulets, known as moonlets, were traditionally worn as necklaces by both men and women, and were even placed around the necks of animals. Additionally, earrings have been used as protective amulets. The Bible recounts Jacob burying earrings beneath an oak tree, highlighting their significance in ancient times. Christian amulets against evil encompass holy objects and chants, among which the cross and crucifix hold significant importance. The cross, one of the oldest amulets predating Christianity by many centuries, is often depicted with 4 arms of equal length rather than in a T shape. Associated with sun deities in the heavens, it symbolizes divine protection and prosperity, also represented by the Y-shaped tree of life, serving as the world axis bridging Earth and the cosmos. The physical and the spiritual. In Christianity, the cross goes beyond its amuletic origins to symbolize the religion and the suffering of Christ's crucifixion, while still offering protection against evil forces. Legend recounts a time before Christ's crucifixion when Lucifer, in his attempt to usurp God's power, scattered God's angels twice. In response, God sent his angels a cross of light inscribed with the names of the Trinity. Upon seeing this cross, Lucifer's forces weakened, and they were driven into hell. Early Christians adopted the sign of the cross both for divine protection and as a means of identifying each other. In the 4th century, it is said that Empress Helena, mother of Constantine I, discovered Christ's wooden cross during excavations in Jerusalem. Legend tells that out of 3 crosses found at the site of the crucifixion, only one caused a corpse to return to life when brought into contact. Portions of this cross were sent to Rome and preserved in the Vatican, while the rest was reburied. Fragments fashioned into amulets became highly prized. As the influence of the church grew, so did the significance of the cross. It was believed that nothing unholy could withstand its presence. The cross and the sign of the cross were believed to exorcise demons, ward off incubi and succubi, protect against bewitchment, safeguard crops from witches, and repel vampires. In the Middle Ages, inquisitors often wore crosses or made the sign of the cross in the presence of accused witches to counter any evil spells they might cast. People routinely crossed themselves as a precaution against nearby evil entities. In cases of demonic possession, victims often recoil from the sight of a cross. Placing a cross behind the head of a demoniac is a test of possession, while demoniacs may spit on or destroy crosses. Some possessed individuals exhibit stigmata in the shape of a cross. Others, like Clara Germana Celli in 1906, cannot tolerate even the presence of a small concealed cross. In Catholic exorcisms, priests protect themselves and the victim with the sign of the cross, making numerous crosses on the victim's forehead as part of the ritual. Gregorian chants, prayers sung in Latin, are employed in some cases of demonic possession to calm the afflicted individual and to purify spaces. It is believed that demons find Gregorian chant unbearable, making it an effective tool in exorcism rituals and cleansing rituals. The medal of Saint Benedict, often referred to as the metal cross of Saint Benedict, has long been associated with the cross and is considered a powerful symbol of exorcism and protection against Satan and the forces of evil. On the front of the medal is an image of Saint Benedict with a cross and a raven. The origin of the first Saint Benedict medal is uncertain. However, at some point in history, a series of capital letters VRSN SMVSM QLIVB was inscribed around the large figure of the cross on the reverse side of the medal. In 1647, a manuscript dating back to 1415 was discovered at the Abbey of Metten in Bavaria, providing an explanation for these letters. They represent the initials of a Latin prayer of exorcism against Satan. Ve retro satana, nunquam sued mihi vana, sunt malaque libas, ipse venena bibas. Begone, Satan, never tempt me with your vanities. What you offer me is evil. Drink the poison yourself. Saint Benedict medals are carried by individuals and placed in homes, cars, and other locations as amulets against Satan and as reminders to resist temptation. They are believed to offer protection and spiritual strength in times of need. Holy water is a sacred mixture of water and salt blessed by a priest. Salt symbolizes incorruptibility, eternity, and divine wisdom, while water represents purity. Church sites are consecrated with holy water, and Catholic rituals such as benediction and baptism with holy water are believed to ensure physical health and the exorcism of evil spirits. As an additional precaution against demons, salt is traditionally placed in a newborn baby's cradle until the infant can be baptized. Similarly, at death, Salt is often placed in a coffin to help protect the soul from demons during its transition from earth to the spiritual realm. In Islamic discourse, Ahriman embodies the absolute evil in contrast to Iblis or Satan, who represents an original noble being still under God's power. Although the divs, the creations of Ahriman in Zoroastrian beliefs, entered Islamic literature, to the point of being accepted as reality by Muslims, Ahriman is mostly a stylistic device to refute the idea of absolute evil. The divs were yet another creation by God, although prior to the devils, angels, jinn, and humans mentioned in the Quran. Ayn al-Qusat Hamadani asserts that evil exists relational to humans, but always serves a greater purpose. In accordance with Tawhid, God is the ultimate source of good and evil. Rumi denies the existence of Ahriman completely. The dedication of Ahriman to undermining the good that was done by Ahura Mazda could not be equated with any other kind of strategy. He focused his attention on doing so at every turn, and he did not consider using his power for the promotion of others. Ahriman is capable of narrating the unpredictable and often chaotic aspects of life, which can come without warning and disrupt one's plans and daily routine. Early Iranian religion developed in the region known as Greater Iran, Caucasus, Central Asia, South Asia, and West Asia prior to the 3rd millennium BC, when one branch of a migratory people, known as Aryans meaning noble or free, settled in the land of the Aryans, Iran. Their religion was polytheistic and was kept through oral tradition, passed down generation to generation through stories, rituals, and traditions. This belief system was reformed by the prophet Zoroaster, who reimagined the earlier gods and created a new religion, Zoroastrianism, which was monotheistic. This faith also maintained an oral tradition, which was not committed to writing until the time of the Sasanian Empire, 224 to 651 CE, and most of what is known of the early Iranian religion comes from Zoroastrian texts such as the Avesta, the Bundahes, the Denkard, and the Vendidad, which reference the earlier gods in the stories, now known as ancient Persian mythology, of how the world, humans, and the gods came to be, as well as the Shahnameh, Book of Kings, a collection of legends and myths and other works. A legend about Ahriman says that he had a son named Zohak, whom he trained to be evil. He told Zohak to kill his own father. He disguised himself, however, and Zohak killed someone he thought was his father. Ahriman, again in disguise, became chef of the palace. Zohak was so impressed with him that he offered to reward him. Ahriman asked only to kiss his shoulders. When he did so, serpents sprang from the spots. Every time Zohak cut them off, they grew back. Ahriman entered in another disguise, as a doctor, and told Zohak that he had to feed the serpent's human brains every day. Zohak complied and became Ahriman's pride. The sun ruled for 1,000 years and finally was destroyed. Meet Ammon, the enigmatic marquis from the depths of hell, renowned as the 7th among the 72 spirits of Solomon's grimoire. Ammon's portrayal in occult lore reveals a potent entity with multifaceted abilities and a shape-shifting nature. According to ancient texts, Ammon possesses a remarkable talent for unveiling both past and future events with pinpoint accuracy. Beyond mere prophecy, he wields the power to influence human emotions, orchestrating love affairs and resolving conflicts with uncanny ease. Ammon's appearance is as intriguing as his abilities. Initially manifesting as a wolf, his form undergoes a startling transformation upon the command of a skilled magician. In an instant, the wolf's guise yields to that of a man, yet with the ominous features of a raven's head and dog's teeth. His dominion extends over 40 legions of demons, further solidifying his stature as a formidable force within the infernal hierarchy. Whether settling disputes between mortals or weaving the tapestry of fate, Ammon's influence permeates both the mortal realm and the realms beyond. However, it's crucial to approach Ammon's legend with discernment. recognizing its roots in esoteric traditions and ancient folklore. His tale serves as a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the unseen realms, where the line between myth and reality blurs, and the shadows conceal secrets waiting to be unveiled. In the realm of demonology, Ahriman stands as a captivating figure, embodying both the allure and the peril of delving into the occult depths. His story invites contemplation on the mysteries that lie beyond the veil and the eternal dance between light and shadow in the human psyche. Amityville Haunting. Located in Amityville, Long Island, New York, this house became infamous in the 1970s when a family experienced horrifying phenomena. Dubbed the Amityville Horror, paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren deemed the events demonic. The case remains highly controversial, with numerous investigations, claims, counterclaims, lawsuits, books, films, intense publicity, and attempts to debunk it. The haunting phenomena surrounding the house at 112 Ocean Street are believed to stem from a gruesome multiple murder on November 13, 1974. 6 members of the DeFeo family, parents, 2 sons, and 2 daughters, were discovered shot to death with a .35 caliber rifle. Their estimated time of death was 3 a.m. Ronald Butch DeFeo, the 23-year-old son, was charged with the murders. Despite pleading insanity, citing a history of drug abuse, he was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. The house was empty until December 1975, when it was purchased by newlyweds George and Kathy Lutz. They were informed of the murders but bought the house anyway. They moved in on December 18, with Kathy's 3 children by a previous marriage: Daniel, 9, Christopher, 7, and Melissa, 5. According to the Lutzes, they immediately experienced horrible phenomena. Voices told them to get out. There were swarms of flies in the cold of winter. Kathy had nightmares about the murders. The apparition of a demon boy who could shapeshift into a demonic pig was seen. Green slime oozed from walls. A crucifix hanging on a wall was turned upside down. Kathy's face transfigured before George into a horrid hag. Mysterious noises sounded in the middle of the night. The apparition of a little girl became Melissa's playmate. Unseen presences embraced Kathy. Cloven hoofprints appeared in the snow outside the house. Locks and doors were damaged, and so on. Their behavior and mood deteriorated. The children could not attend school, and George was unable to work. The Lutzes tried to bless the house with prayer themselves, but their efforts had no effect. Finally, they were subjected to events that terrified them so badly, they knew they had to get out. The Lutzes never disclosed all that happened on their last terror-filled night. But among the phenomena were bangings and a hooded apparition that appeared on the stairs and pointed at George. They left the house in a rush on January 14, 1976, and went to the home of Kathy's mother in Deer Park, New York. They left most of their belongings behind and sent a mover to collect them later. In late February, Ed and Lorraine Warren were contacted by a New York City television producer who asked them to check the house and story. Parapsychologists and psychical researchers had gone to the house, but what happened there remained a mystery. The producer asked the Warrens to hold a séance at the house. The Warrens visited the Lutzes, where they were staying, and obtained keys. The Lutzes refused to re-enter the house, but asked the Warrens to find and take the deed to them. On their walkthrough, the Warrens found a house evacuated in a hurry. A gingerbread house from Christmas still sat on the dining room table. Laundry was folded, and the freezer was stocked with food. Clothing, jewelry, family photos, and other personal belongings were left in place. The Warrens conducted a séance, and then returned at a later time to conduct a nighttime séance for television. In attendance were 17 people, including 2 trance mediums, Alberta Riley and Mary Pasquarella. Prior to the start of the séance, Ed used religious provocation to test for the presence of demons. Approximately half the persons present were physically assaulted. Ed suffered from intense heart palpitations, which affected him for 3 weeks. After returning home to Connecticut, the Warrens said they were assaulted by a demonic force at about 3 a.m. Details of the attack were published in their autobiography, The Demonologist, 1980. A malevolent presence first assaulted Ed, who was working alone in his office in a cottage attached to the main house. He heard the door open and 3 footsteps sound. At first, he thought it was Lorraine giving him coffee. Then a howling wind started, building in intensity. The desk lamp dimmed and the temperature in the room plummeted. A smell of sulfur manifested. Ed armed himself with a vial of holy water and a crucifix, and found himself confronted by a triangular, swirling black mass, broad at the top and pointed at the bottom. The mass grew denser, transforming itself into a horrible, hooded figure that moved aggressively toward him. Ed threw the holy water at it and held up the crucifix, commanding it to leave in the name of Jesus Christ. The demon backed off but transmitted an image to Ed of him and Lorraine involved in a deadly automobile accident. It departed. The demon then visited Lorraine, who was reading in bed with their 2 dogs present. A loud pounding sounded, and the temperature in the room dropped. The sound of wind rose up the stairs. The demon entered the room, and Lorraine was paralyzed, unable to react or scream. She felt herself being drawn into the black mass. She was able to break the paralysis and called out to God for protection. She made the sign of the cross in the air. That stopped the mass from advancing, but it did not depart the home. Ed ran in, and the mass left, going into the next room and up the chimney. The demonic encounter was not the first that the Warrens said they experienced while pursuing their investigations of places such as the Amityville house. The Warrens determined that the events at Amityville were demonic phenomena, which the Lutzes, who knew nothing of demonology, could not have fabricated. The Warrens took numerous photographs, including one purporting to show the face of the demon boy peering out from a bedroom. The Lutzes wondered whether something wrong about the house itself might have influenced DeFeo to commit the murders. They moved to San Diego, California, where they struck a deal with the author Jay Anson to write a book. The Amityville Horror was published in 1977 and was adapted to film in 1979. Anson never visited the house but wrote the book from taped interviews. It contained numerous errors and embellishments but became a media sensation. Skeptics used the errors as a way to try to debunk the case. There was no snow in Amityville on the day that the cloven hoofprints were supposed to have been seen. Native Americans refuted Anson's assertion that part of the problem was due to the house's location on a place where Shinnecock Indians had once abandoned mentally ill and dying people. Father Pecoraro said he did not go to the house to bless it. Lutz always asserted that he did. Many more points of controversy surfaced. Even the Warrens and George Lutz acknowledged that Anson's book was not entirely accurate, but attributed it to Anson's lack of familiarity with demonology, and not any deliberate acts by George Lutz. For years, the case was repeatedly debunked, validated, debunked, and validated. In 1977, the Lutzes filed a lawsuit against William Weber, DeFeo's attorney, and Paul Hoffman, a writer working on the story, Bernard Burton and Frederick Mars, 2 clairvoyants who had been to the house, and Good Housekeeping, the New York Sunday News, and the Hearst Corporation, which had published articles on the haunting. The Lutzes sought $5.4 million in damages for invasion of privacy, misappropriation of names for trade purposes, and mental distress. Weber, Hoffman, and Burton countersued for $2 million, alleging fraud and breach of contract. The Lutzes' claims against the news organizations were dropped. The Lutzes' case went to trial in district court in Brooklyn, New York, in 1979. The judge dismissed their suit, saying that from testimony, it appears to me that to a large extent the book is a work of fiction, relying in a large part upon the suggestions of Mr. Weber. The couple who purchased the house from the Lutzes said nothing unusual happened to them. However, they were so annoyed by the publicity and steady stream of curiosity seekers that they sued Anson, the Lutzes, and the publisher Prentice Hall for $1.1 million. They received a settlement for an unspecified lesser amount. Father Pecoraro, who was consulted by the Lutzes for help, sued the Lutzes and Prentice Hall for invasion of privacy and distortion of his involvement in the case. He received an out-of-court settlement. The Lutzes stuck to their story for the rest of their lives. They divorced in the 1980s. Kathy died of emphysema on August 17, 2004. George, who had moved to Las Vegas, died on May 8, 2006, of heart disease. Anson died of a heart attack in 1980. Father Pecoraro is no longer living. The Amityville case has gone on to become a mini-industry, spawning books, films, articles, and websites, and endless debates. Books by John G. Jones, Amityville 2, and Amityville. The final chapter changed the names of the principals and added other details. Additional films include Amityville 2, The Possession, 1982, Amityville D, 1983, Amityville 4, The Evil Escapes, 1989, made for television, The Amityville Curse, 1990, Amityville 1992, It's About Time, 1992, Amityville, A New Generation, 1993. The house known as 112 Ocean Avenue still exists, but it has been renovated, and the address changed to discourage sightseers from visiting it. Quarter-round windows have been removed, and the house today looks considerably different from its depiction in the films. The only absolute truth is that the Amityville home has had multiple owners since the Lutzes left. Most recently, it was sold in 2010 and 2016, and in all that time, there have been no repeat complaints from subsequent owners about hauntings, evil possessions, or anything else even remotely nefarious. Subscribe now to the channel for more mysterious stories and facts. The Dyatlov Pass incident, known as the death of the Dyatlov tour group in Russian, remains a haunting mystery from February 1 to 2, 1959, when 9 Soviet hikers met their untimely demise in the remote northern Ural Mountains. Led by Igor Dyatlov, a skilled trekker, the group from the Ural Polytechnical Institute had set up camp on the eastern slopes of Kholat Syakhl in the Russian SFSR of the Soviet Union. During the night, for reasons still unclear, they urgently slashed their way out of their tent and fled the campsite, ill-prepared for the severe snowfall and sub-zero temperatures they faced. Following the discovery of the group's bodies, a thorough investigation by Soviet authorities revealed chilling details. 6 members succumbed to hypothermia, while the remaining 3 suffered fatal physical trauma. 1 victim sustained severe skull damage, 2 exhibited profound chest injuries, and another had a minor skull fracture. Strangely, 4 bodies were found in a creek with evidence of soft tissue damage to their heads and faces. 2 had missing eyes, 1 lacked a tongue, and another was missing eyebrows. The official investigation attributed the deaths to a compelling natural force. However, the incident has spawned numerous theories ranging from animal attacks, hypothermia, and avalanches to katabatic winds, infrasound-induced panic, military involvement, or a combination thereof, leaving the true cause shrouded in mystery. In 2019, Russia initiated a fresh investigation into the Dyatlov Pass incident, with its findings unveiled in July 2020. According to this inquiry, the tragic deaths resulted from an avalanche. Survivors of the avalanche were compelled to hastily evacuate their camp amidst low visibility conditions and were ill-prepared for the harsh elements, ultimately succumbing to hypothermia. Andrei Kurdyakov, deputy head of the regional prosecutor's office, described the event as a heroic struggle devoid of panic, yet tragically, the trekkers had little chance of survival given the circumstances. Additionally, a study led by scientists from EPFL and ETH-SRIC, published in 2021, proposed that a particular type of avalanche known as a slab avalanche could elucidate some of the injuries sustained by the trekkers. In remembrance of the ill-fated group, a mountain pass in the vicinity was later named Dyatlov Pass. Across various languages, the incident has become known as the Dyatlov Pass incident. However, it's noteworthy that the tragedy unfolded approximately 1,700 meters, 600 feet away from this pass, specifically on the eastern slope of Kholat Syakhl. Serving as a poignant tribute, a notable rock outcrop in the area now stands as a memorial to the group. This memorial is situated approximately 500 meters, 600 feet, to the east-southeast of the actual location of the final campsite. The concept of the aerial spirits of Solomon originates from various grimoires and magical texts attributed to King Solomon, a figure from biblical and mystical traditions. These texts, including the Key of Solomon and the Lesser Key of Solomon, outline rituals and methods for summoning and commanding various spirits, including angels, demons, and other supernatural entities. Within these texts, the aerial spirits are often described as a hierarchy of spirits or demons associated with the four cardinal directions: east, west, north, south, and the elements: earth, air, fire, water. Amityville is mentioned as one of these spirits, specifically as the Great Emperor of the West. The rituals for summoning and commanding these spirits typically involve complex ceremonies, symbols, and invocations. Practitioners would often use magical tools, such as wands, circles, and seals, to protect themselves and control the spirits they summoned. It's important to note that these texts and practices are part of occult or esoteric traditions and are not considered part of mainstream religious beliefs. They have been influential in various occult traditions throughout history and continue to be studied and practiced by some individuals interested in ceremonial magic and occultism. Amityville is known by various aliases, reflecting his significant role in celestial hierarchy and mythology. He is referred to as the fury and righteousness of God, symbolizing his role as an instrument of divine justice. As God's right hand and great warrior, Amityville embodies strength and authority in carrying out divine will. Lucifer Morningstar affectionately calls him God's finest, acknowledging his exceptional qualities. Among the angels, he is recognized as the soldier of God and God's most loyal soldier, highlighting his unwavering dedication. Amityville is also esteemed as God's favorite son, reflecting his special favor. Both God and Goddess affectionately address him as son, emphasizing his familial bond with them and the other angels. Alongside the angels, he is referred to as children, indicating their shared divine lineage. Lucifer playfully calls him boys, along with the other angels, underlining their camaraderie. Amityville is regarded as a brother by the angels, and Lucifer, Ella Lopez, and Michael affectionately address him as bro, highlighting their close relationships. Lucifer also recognizes Amityville's status as the firstborn and eldest brother, acknowledging his seniority and leadership among the celestial siblings. Amityville can be called at any time of the day or night, but his dukes, having subordinate servants each in 3,000, caused only during certain hours. For example, Vadras can be called in the first 2 hours of the day, and so on until Nadroka, which may be caused in the past 2 o'clock in the morning, then starts again with all Vadrasa. This rule applies to the dukes, who are subordinate to the Demoriella, Emperor of the North. Amityville's name means treaty.
The astronomers, based in Purple Mountain and National Astronomical Observatories, analyzed different sources of data on the Milky Way. They used new space technology to look at the distance between individual stars. Overall, they measured the distance between 200 stars and put a map together of the Milky Way. They also used data from the European Space Agency's Gaia Space Telescope for their map. This telescope is special since it precisely observes the movement of stars. The Milky Way galaxy, which is home to our solar system, has long been thought to have a flat disk shape. However, recent research from astronomers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences suggests that the Milky Way is actually a different shape. The team of astronomers used a combination of data from different sources to better understand the galaxy's shape and came to some surprising conclusions. One of the key techniques used by the researchers was measuring Cepheid variable stars. These are a type of star that are helpful for astronomers to use in research because their distance apart is easy to measure. While most stars have a variable brightness, making it hard to tell how far away they are, Cepheid stars are different. They change their brightness at regular intervals. Cepheids get brighter and dimmer over days, weeks, and months. Astronomers can track this brightness cycle to measure how far away the star is. By doing this, the scientists were able to create a three-dimensional map of over 1,000 Cepheid stars in the Milky Way. Another major finding was that the Milky Way isn't a flat disk. While the Milky Way is often depicted as a flat disk of stars, the map shows that the galaxy is actually twisted in an S shape. The Milky Way isn't the only galaxy like this. More than half of spiral galaxies have some sort of twist. The new findings show that the Milky Way is pretty normal in terms of galaxy shapes, but humans have been imagining the shape wrong for a long time. The research findings show that the Milky Way probably doesn't have 4 arms, as was previously thought. Instead, the astronomers found 2 main arms connected to the central bulge of the galaxy. This would mean the Milky Way is a barred spiral galaxy with 2 main arms instead of 4. On the edge of the Milky Way galaxy, there are irregular arms disconnected from the central bulge of the galaxy. One possibility as to why the spiral arms aren't connected to the central bulge is that our galaxy may have collided with other galaxies throughout history. The fact that the Milky Way is twisted has important implications for our understanding of the galaxy's history and evolution. It suggests that the galaxy has undergone some sort of disturbance, such as a collision with another galaxy, which caused it to become twisted. The researchers believe that the twist in the Milky Way's shape may have been caused by the galaxy's interaction with the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, which is a small galaxy that orbits the Milky Way. The research conducted by the astronomers at the Chinese Academy of Sciences has shed new light on the shape of the Milky Way galaxy and its history. The team's use of new space technology and data from the Gaia Space Telescope has allowed them to create a more accurate map of the galaxy and better understand its structure. The findings have important implications for our understanding of the galaxy's history, evolution, and the distribution of dark matter. As we continue to explore the universe, it's likely that we'll continue to uncover new and exciting information about the Milky Way and its place in the cosmos. The new findings also have implications for our understanding of the distribution of dark matter in the Milky Way. Dark matter is a mysterious substance that doesn't emit or absorb light, but its presence can be inferred from its gravitational effects on visible matter. The researchers found that the distribution of dark matter in the Milky Way is closely linked to the distribution of visible matter, which suggests that the two are connected in some way.
In German lore, a vampiric, shape-shifting spirit associated with nightmare demons, the Bogie, and the sexual predator demons, the succubus and incubus. The Alp can be either a demon or a malevolent ghost of a dead person. In folklore, children are doomed to become Alps if their mothers use horse collars to ease childbirth. The Alp can assume different forms, from seductive humans to animals, such as cats, pigs, birds, and lecherous dogs. It may be disguised as a butterfly released by the breath of the Horoxy, another vampiric demon. Regardless of its form, the Alp likes to wear a magical hat, which confers upon it invisibility and supernatural power, including the evil eye. The Alp, in many cases, is considered a demon, but there have been some instances in which the Alp is created from the spirits of recently dead relatives, more akin to a spirit or ghost. Children may become an Alp if a woman bites a horse collar to ease the pain during an extremely long and tortuous childbirth. Also, a child born with a caul or hair on the palms may become an Alp. If a woman who is pregnant is frightened by an animal, the child may be born an Alp. Stillborn infants are also suspected to return from the grave as Alpa and torment their family. People who have eyebrows that meet are suspected to be Alp. As with the case of werewolves, sometimes a normal human or animal may become an Alp during the night. They are typically unaware of their nocturnal activities and are invariably in disguise while doing so. Finding an Alp, while it is not active, simply requires injuring or otherwise marking it during one of its attacks, and seeking out the being with a similar mark during the day. The person can then be cured if it is found out who sent them the curse, or how they became cursed to begin with. Witchcraft is often the prime suspect in this case. Sometimes an Alp is a spirit summoned by a witch or an evil person wishing harm on another, and sent to torment them. Tricking an Alp may lead a person to its master. The Alp has an odd way of sexually molesting men and women. It enters through the victim's mouth as a mist or a serpent. It drinks blood through the nipples of both men and women and consumes the milk of women and cows. It sucks the life breath from victims. The Alp is best known for its shape-shifting abilities, similar to the creatures from werewolf lore. It may change into a cat, pig, dog, snake, or a small white butterfly. It has also been said that it can fly like a bird and ride a horse. The Alp always wears a hat, giving it an almost comical appearance. The hat is known as a tarnkappe, the literal translation being camouflage cap or cap of concealment, which is simply a hat, or less, commonly a veil, that gives the Alp magic powers and the ability to turn invisible while worn. The hat is visible no matter what shape the Alp takes. An Alp who has lost this hat will offer a great reward for its safe return. Alp also possesses an evil eye whose gaze will inflict illness and misfortune. Removing or damaging this eye also removes the Alp's malicious intentions. Protections against an Alp include laying a broomstick under a pillow, iron horseshoes hung from the bedpost, placing shoes against the bed with the toes pointing toward the door, or placing a mirror on the chest. Steel and crosses are also used. If awoken by the Alp and finding him still there, one can address him by asking him to return in the morning to borrow something or have coffee. The Alp will dash away at once, arriving in the morning, either in his true form, or else in the form of a human with eyebrows that meet to receive his gifts. The creature can be convinced to leave the victim alone at this time, but the Alp will beg pitifully and at length not to be turned away, plugging up any holes, specifically keyholes, before a visitation will keep the Alp out. Plugging them during a visitation will invariably seal it inside the room, as they can leave only through their original entrance. A light kept constantly on during the night will also effectively ward off an Alp. A sentry may also be employed to wait and watch for the Alp to attack the helpless sleeper. The Alp may be driven away if caught by someone not under the Alp's influence. Similar to the German Neuntoter, Alpi are weakened or immobilized by shoving a lemon in its mouth should it be caught resting during the day. The Alp appears all but impossible to kill, and sometimes even after being turned away it may reappear years later in a worse mood.
In January 1959, a group of experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, embarked on a challenging trek in the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. The group set out for the Dyatlov Pass, but when they failed to send a scheduled message upon their return, concern grew. Search and rescue teams discovered the hikers' tent seemingly slashed open from the inside. The hikers' footprints led to a nearby forest, where they found the first 5 bodies dressed only in underwear, near the remnants of a makeshift campfire. Strange details unfolded as investigators pieced together the scene. 3 more bodies, including Dyatlov, were found later, further away, seemingly attempting to return to the tent. Autopsies revealed bizarre injuries, including fractured skulls, chest fractures, and one hiker with a missing tongue. The injuries were inconsistent with a simple explanation like an avalanche or animal attack. The Soviet authorities closed the case, citing a compelling natural force as the cause, but the lack of a satisfactory explanation fueled speculation. Theories range from military involvement to paranormal phenomena, adding an air of mystery to the Dyatlov Pass incident that endures to this day.
Aix-en-Provence possessions, 1609 to 1611. sensational case of possessed Ursuline nuns, alleged immoral sex, and a pact with the devil, which led to the torture and execution of a priest. The Aix-en-Provence case is one of the first in France to produce a conviction based on the testimony of a demoniac. Prior to the 17th century in France, accusations from a demoniac were considered unreliable, since most clerics believed that any words spoken by one possessed by the devil were utterances from the father of lies, John 8:44, and would not stand up to accepted rules of evidence. As with the Loudun possessions, sexual themes dominated the manifestations of the nuns' possession. The central figure and perpetrator of the case was Sister Madeleine de Mondox de la Palu, a high-strung, vain girl from a wealthy and aristocratic Provençal family. Deeply religious from childhood, she was sent in 1605, at age 12, to the new Ursuline convent in Aix-en-Provence. There, she was one of only 6 nuns, all of them from wealthy families. Their spiritual director was Father Jean-Baptiste Ramillon. After about 2 years, Madeleine became severely depressed and was sent home. There she was visited by a family friend who sought to help her, Father Louis Gaufridi, a handsome priest 20 years her senior. Gaufridi had a much lower-class background but was popular among the wealthy. He was personable and entertaining, and his good looks appealed to women. Thus it was no surprise that 14-year-old Madeleine fell violently in love with him. He visited often, and gossip flew when he once spent an hour and a half with her without her family present. Warnings about this inappropriate behavior were issued to Gaufridi and to Madeleine's mother by the head of the Ursuline convent in Marseille, Mother Catherine de Gomer. Still, in 17th century France, loose behavior by clergy was tolerated, unless witchcraft was suspected. In 1607, Madeleine went to the convent in Marseille as a novice. She confessed to Mother Catherine that she had been intimate with Gaufridi. Mother Catherine sent her back to Aix-en-Provence, which was more remote, and where Gaufridi could not visit her. Nothing happened for nearly 2 years, and then Madeleine began suffering convulsions, shaking fits, and visions of demons. Before Christmas 1609, she smashed a crucifix during confession. Father Ramillon tried to exorcise Madeleine without success. Meanwhile, her possession infected 3 other nuns, who began having the same symptoms and lost their speech. By Easter 1610, the nuns were still afflicted. Father Ramillon confronted Gaufridi in June about his affair with Madeleine, which the priest denied. Madeleine, however, had become quite vocal about their indiscretions during her fits. She accused Gaufridi of denying God, giving her a green devil for a familiar, and having sex with her since she had been 13. Later, she said she was 9 when they began their affair. She claimed he gave her a special powder to drink that would cause any baby she bore not to look like him, so he would not fall under suspicion. Ramillon conducted secret exorcisms on Madeleine. 5 more nuns became infected. One of them, Louise Capot, became her rival in performance. Exasperated, Ramillon took the 2 young women to see the Grand Inquisitor in Avignon, Sebastien Michaelis, a man who had gotten on in years but was quite feared. He had sent 18 witches to their death at the stake in Avignon. He was a most determined inquisitor. Michaelis' approach was a public exorcism of the nuns at the shrine of St. Mary Magdalene in the grotto at Stabal. It failed. Madeleine and Louise were then sent to another exorcist, François Domtius, a Flemish Dominican priest at the Royal Convent of St. Maximin. Louise stole center stage. 3 demons who possessed her, Verin, Grazel, and Saint-Alon, spoke through her in a deep bass voice. They taunted Madeleine with possession by Beelzebub, Leviathan, Baalberith, Asmodeus, and Astaroth, all important in hell, plus 6,661 other demons, for a grand total of 6,666. In response, Madeleine screamed obscenities. The witnesses, including the exorcists, were convinced beyond doubt that the women were genuinely possessed. On December 15, Verin, speaking again through Louise, identified Gaufridi as the cause of Madeleine's possession. Michaelis sent for Gaufridi, intending that he perform an exorcism, but without explanation to the priest. Goffridi had no knowledge of exorcisms, and the two nuns mocked him, calling him a magician. He retorted, "If I were a witch, I would certainly give my soul to 1,000 devils." Michaelis pounced on this and had Goffridi arrested and jailed in the grotto. While he languished in jail, his quarters were searched for evidence of witchcraft, but nothing was found. Madeleine, not to be outdone by Louise, expanded on her accusations, saying the priest did not pray with a clean heart and accusing him of every obscene act possible. Even so, without hard evidence, there were no grounds to continue to hold Goffridi. His many friends went to his defense. Michaelis reluctantly freed him, and he returned to his parish in a rage. He undertook a campaign to clear his name, appealing even to the Pope. He also sought to suppress the Ursuline convents and jail the offending nuns. Michaelis continued to look for ways to convict him on charges of sorcery. Michaelis confined Madeleine to the Stibaum convent. Her behavior worsened. She may have become manic-depressive. She danced. Michaelis at last was able to pressure the Parliament of Aix to bring Goffridi to trial in civil court in February 1611. Madeleine and Louise were the star witnesses against the priest, recounting in graphic detail their possessions and going into fits before the court. Madeleine alternated this daily display with assertions that she was making everything up. She claimed great love for Goffridi and actually writhed on the floor imitating the sexual acts they had done. Physicians examined her and agreed she was not a virgin. She displayed the devil's marks on the bottom of her feet and under her left breast. When pricked with a pin, the marks did not bleed or cause her pain. The marks mysteriously disappeared and reappeared repeatedly. Twice she attempted suicide in bouts of deep depression. While he awaited his turn in court, Goffridi was kept in heavy chains in a rat-infested dungeon. He was taken before the court in March, weak and dispirited. His body was shaved, and 3 devil's marks were found. At last, the priest surrendered to relentless prosecution and confessed to being prince of the synagogue and to signing a pact with the devil in his own blood in exchange for the promise that all women would follow him. He described Sabbats, though not as luridly as had Madeleine. Michaelis was ecstatic at Goffridi's breakdown and wrote a phony confession of 52 points. Goffridi rejected it, saying he had been forced under torture to confess. On April 18, 1611, the court found him guilty of sorcery. Mad still, the court was not done with the priest, continuing a relentless interrogation to obtain names of accomplices. Goffridi became deranged, still denying intimacy with Madeleine, but confessing to more sensational crimes. His last appearance before the court was on April 28, at which he said the truth no longer mattered, and he had eaten roasted babies. Goffridi was executed on April 30. First, he was subjected to horrible torture. He was defrocked and degraded and subjected 3 times to the strappado, in which he was strung up on a rope with his hands bound behind his back and dropped, so that his bones were severely and painfully dislocated. Then, he was subjected 4 times to the squassation, in which heavy weights were attached to his feet, and he was hoisted on a rope and dropped sharply to within inches of the floor. But Goffridi had no names of fellow witches or sorcerers to give. He was then forced to ask God for forgiveness and was bound to a wooden sled and dragged through the streets of Aix for 5 hours. Fortunately for Goffridi, the Bishop of Marseilles had granted him a special dispensation, and he was strangled to death before his body was put on the burning bushes. It was a significant mercy. As soon as he was executed, Madeleine was cured. But the Aix-en-Provence affair was not over by any means. Louise continued to have visions of witches, which led to a blind girl's being accused and convicted of witchcraft and burned at the stake on July 19, 1611. The possession infection spread to 2 other convents, St. Clair's in Aix and, 2 years later, St. Bridget's in Lille. There, 3 nuns accused Sister Marie de Saints of bewitching them. Most notable about Sister Marie's testimony, in many ways a copy of Madeleine's performance, was her detailed description of the witches' Sabbath. On Mondays and Tuesdays, the witches copulated with devils and each other in a natural fashion. They practiced sodomy on Thursdays and bestiality on Saturdays and sang litanies to the devil on Wednesdays and Fridays. Sunday, apparently, was their day off. Marie was put away out of sight by the Archbishop of Malines, and the Lille possessions died down. Madeleine's troubles recurred later in life. In 1642, at age 49, she was accused of witchcraft. Her relatives abandoned her, and she was forced to prepare her own defense with inherited money. She was accused again in 1652, and many witnesses testified against her. Devil's marks were found on her. She was sentenced to pay a large fine and spend the rest of her life in prison. After 10 years, she was released to a relative in Châteauvieux, where she died at age 77 on December 20th, 1670. Subscribe now the channel for more mysterious stories and facts.
Adramelech, aka Adramelech, a chieftain of hell. Adramelech is of uncertain origin. Possibly he was derived from a Sumerian sun god worshipped by the Sepharvites, who burned children as a sacrificial offering to him. Adramelech is the Grand Chancellor of Demons, President of the Devil's General Council, and Governor of the Devil's Wardrobe. Adramelech himself is often portrayed as a peacock or as a mule. He is the 8th of the 10 evil demons of the Sephirot of the Tree of Life. He works under the command of Samael. Like many pagan gods, Adramelech is considered a demon in some Judeo-Christian traditions, so he appears in Milton's Paradise Lost, where he is a fallen angel who, along with Asmodeus, is vanquished by Uriel and Raphael. According to Colin de Plancy's book on demonology, Infernal Dictionary, Adramelech became the president of the Senate of the Demons. The 1731 reports, the Sepharvites burned their children in the fire as sacrifices to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaniv. The Sepharvites are given as a people deported by the Assyrians to Samaria. Adramelech and the god Anamelech, about whom likewise little is known, are again seemingly alluded to in 2 Kings 18:34. Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? Hena and Iva, have they rescued Samaria from my hand? Nidad your side. Isaiah 36:19 has an almost identical. According to A. R. Millard, Saul Lyon, and others, Adramelech likely represents an original Lee Jime, majestic king, or the majestic one is king. Cognat deer milk, along with similar milkadir and Badiwaya and majestic Baal, is recorded in ancient Semitic sources as an epithet of Baal.
Abaddon or Apollyon. He is an angel of death, destruction, and the netherworld. The name Abaddon is derived from the Hebrew term for to destroy and means place of destruction. Apollyon is the Greek name. In magic, Abaddon is often equated with Satan and Samael. His name is evoked in conjuring spells for malicious deeds. Abaddon is the prince who rules the 7th hierarchy of demons, the Erinyes, or Furies, who govern powers of evil, discord, war, and devastation. Originally, Abaddon was a place and not an angel or being. In rabbinic writings in the Old Testament, Abaddon is primarily a place of destruction and a name for one of the regions of Gehenna. The term occurs 6 times in the Old Testament. In Proverbs, verses 15:11 and 27:20, it is named with Sheol as a region of the underworld. In Psalm, the verse 88:11, Abaddon is associated with the grave in the underworld. In Job 26:6, Abaddon is associated with Sheol. Later, Job 28:22 names Abaddon and death together, implying personified beings. In Revelation 9:10, Abaddon is personified as the king of the abyss, the bottomless pit of hell. Revelation also cites the Greek version of the name, Apollyon, probably a reference to Apollo, Greek god of pestilence and destruction. In the Gnostic 3rd century Acts of Thomas, Abaddon is the name of a demon, or the devil himself. Abaddon is given particularly important roles in 2 sources, a homily entitled, The Enthronement of Abaddon, by Pseudo-Timothy of Alexandria, and the Book of the Resurrection of Jesus Christ, by Bartholomew the Apostle.
Lenwood Ballard Abbot. Lenwood Ballard Abbot, better known as LB, was born in 1908 and became a celebrated cameraman and special effects artist. His groundbreaking contributions to photographic special effects, particularly his innovative trick shots, have left a lasting impact on the film industry. Abbott's work on the 1970 film Tora 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 demonstrated his ingenuity. He discovered that filming explosions of miniatures at extremely high speeds created the illusion of larger and more powerful displays. This technique revolutionized the way special effects were executed in cinema. Abbott's talent was recognized with multiple Academy Awards. He won for Tora Tora Tora, Dr. Dolittle, The Poseidon Adventure, and Logan's Run. He also received a nomination for Journey to the Center of the Earth. His notable filmography includes Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, Cleopatra, The Sound of Music, Fantastic Voyage, Planet of the Apes, The Towering Inferno, and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Born to a silent film cinematographer, Abbott began his career as a cameraman at the age of 18. In 1957, he became the head of special effects at 20th Century Fox Studios, a position he held until his retirement. Abbott also made significant contributions to television series like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and Lost in Space. L.B. Abbott passed away in 1985, leaving behind a legacy of innovation and excellence in special effects that continues to inspire filmmakers today.